Genesis 4, an exegetical and biblical-theological commentary. Hello everyone and welcome to Room Apologetics. Today we're diving into Genesis 4, exploring the immediate historical and theological consequences of humanity's expulsion from the archetypal sanctuary of Eden. Genesis 4 records the immediate historical and theological consequences of humanity's expulsion from the archetypal sanctuary of Eden. Having been exiled from the unmediated presence of Yahweh, humanity now inhabits the liminal realm, a space characterized by non-order and estrangement. Within the progressive unfolding of the divine promise plan, this chapter traces the escalating reality of human depravity and the immediate tension surrounding the seed promised in Genesis 3 verse 15. As the redemptive trajectory moves forward, the narrative starkly contrasts the faithful lineage that seeks God's presence with a rebellious lineage that attempts to manufacture its own order and security apart from the Creator. Let's move into the exegesis of Genesis 4. Section A, the cultic approach and the posture of the heart, verses 1 through 7. The chapter opens with Eve's optimistic, albeit premature, anticipation of the promised seed who would reverse the Edenic curse. The names of the first two sons hold significant symbolic weight within the Hebrew cognitive environment. Eve's exclamation, "I have produced a man with the help of the Lord," forms a deliberate wordplay with the name Cain, which sounds like the Hebrew word for acquired or created. Abel's name translates to breath, vapor, or vanity, foreshadowing his violently abbreviated life. Both brothers participate in the first recorded cultic approach to Yahweh outside the Edenic sanctuary, acknowledging God's continued sovereignty by bringing offerings. Yahweh's acceptance of Abel's firstborn flock offering and rejection of Cain's fruit offering is rooted not merely in the mechanics of the gift, but in the covenantal fidelity and moral posture of the offerer. God warns Cain that sin is crouching at the door, employing imagery that evokes the Mesopotamian Rabasu demon, a predatory force lurking at thresholds, to underscore the necessity of human moral agency in ruling over disorder. Section B, fratricide, miasma, and further exile, verses 8 through 16. Cain fails to master the crouching threat of sin and lures his brother into the field to murder him. This premeditated act brings about the first human death, violently realizing the curse previously pronounced against Adam. The unauthorized shedding of human blood generates a severe moral impurity, or miasma, that fundamentally pollutes the earth. Because the ground was forced to receive Abel's blood, it recoils against the murderer, refusing to yield its agricultural strength to Cain. Cain is banished further east to the land of Nod, which translates to wandering, marking a profound physical and spiritual departure from the Lord's protective presence. Despite Cain's grievous sin and lack of repentance, God graciously places a mark upon him to prevent his assassination, demonstrating the divine prerogative over life and capital punishment. Section C, the illusion of human order and escalating depravity, verses 17 through 24. In direct defiance of his divine sentence to be a restless wanderer, Cain attempts to establish permanence by building a city and naming it after his son Enoch. The biblical text portrays the dawn of civilization, urbanization, metallurgy, music, and nomadic husbandry as purely human endeavors developed within a fractured, exiled state. This human technological progress is deeply overshadowed by the moral regress of Lamech, the seventh generation from Adam through Cain. Lamech becomes the first polygamist, violating the divine principles of monogamous marriage established in Eden. He boastfully sings to his wives of exacting a disproportionate 77-fold vengeance for a minor injury, illustrating humanity's distortion of God's good gifts for self-exaltation and violence. Lamech's actions reveal that the line of Cain is dominated by those who have no regard for the sanctity of human life, setting the stage for the escalating corruption that will eventually necessitate the flood. New Testament appropriations. Later biblical writers organically connect the narrative of Cain and Abel to the broader canonical conflict between the righteous seed and the seed of the serpent, emphasizing the necessity of faith and the dangers of self-exalting rebellion. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, the author explicitly notes that Abel offered his sacrifice in faith, demonstrating that acceptance before God has always been predicated on a faithful heart posture rather than mere ritualistic action. In 1 John chapter 3, verses 11 through 12, the Apostle John identifies Cain as belonging to the evil one, explicitly linking his murderous actions to his fundamentally wicked deeds, contrasting them directly with Abel's righteousness. In Jude verse 11, Jude warns against the way of Cain, utilizing him as an archetypal example of rebellion, godlessness, and greed for those who abandon true worship. Theological synthesis. Genesis 4 vividly demonstrates the immediate and devastating ripple effects of the cosmic rebellion as it fractures human relationships and pollutes the created order. Yet, viewed through the lens of promise plan theology, it simultaneously highlights the invincible nature of God's redemptive purposes. The physical realities of Cain's exile, his futile attempts to manufacture urban security apart from divine presence, and Lamech's escalating violence serve as concrete historical markers of humanity's descent. However, these localized failures and the tragic death of the righteous Abel organically point forward to the ultimate cosmic necessity of the promised seed, Jesus Christ. He is the true and righteous heir whose own shed blood speaks a better word than the blood of Abel, permanently conquering the crouching power of sin, reversing the miasma of death, and ultimately restoring the one people of God to the unmediated presence of Yahweh. Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next one.